Hi everyone, very welcome to this event, Diverse and Inclusive Workplaces, Share, Mingle and Inspire. This event is organized by Openlab. We are a creative center for societal innovation, working with complex societal challenges in the Stockholm region. So we have courses and processes focusing a lot on design thinking and different innovation methods for this. My name is Ida Niskanen. I work at Openlab as communications manager and innovation manager. And today at this event, I also have the support of two of my colleagues, Daniel Brandt.
I'll keep track of the chat and the questions that you have.
Right, and Carla Gomez as well.
Hello, I am in charge of the technicalities.
And today we also have the help of visual facilitation by Simply Joy Big, Nikki and Mina.
Hello.
So they're gonna capture what is said and done today visually. So the visualizations, the drawings that you will see and have seen are made by Nikki today. This format, Share, Mingle and Inspire, we have had events in this format for quite some time with different topics each time, but basically the same format. This is the second time that we do it digitally. And we always have 5 speakers with a pretty strict presentation format. So they show 5 slides each, shown for 1 minute each. So it's preset to show only 1 minute. So this is a bit of a challenge for our speakers, but we think they're gonna do great. And after each presentation, there will be some time for questions. This is the agenda of this 1.5 hours that we have ahead of us. So after this presentation, you will hear the 5 speakers and the question time after. After all of the presentations, you will have some time to reflect on what you heard and also see the visualizations from all of the talks. And we're gonna have a short leg stretching break. Then we move into a panel discussion with some of your questions and some of our questions to all of the speakers. After that, it's time for the mingle part of Share, Mingle and Inspire, because we also want you to have the opportunity to share your thoughts with others and also network. So that is done in breakout rooms after we say goodbye for today. We'd like you to keep your microphones muted and ask your questions in the Zoom chat if you have any, and Daniel will direct those to the speakers once it's time for that. It's nice if you want to use your camera so we can see you, and we also ask you to bear with us because you never know if the technical equipment is gonna act up. If you wanna set your view, you can find in the upper right corner of your Zoom window, you can choose how you want to see the presenters. So there you can choose speaker's view. This event, Diversity and Inclusion at the Workplaces and the Labor Market. This is a very interesting and of course important topic. And we have had a similar event leading up to this, an event that we had this spring about if gender equality and diversity brings better innovations. So that was also a Share, Mingle and Inspire event. Colleagues of mine have also been mapping different initiatives within this field of diversity and inclusion, focusing on the labor market. And this has led to an article series or a series of blog posts that you can find on Openlab's webpage. So there we list a bunch of initiatives within this field. Today we have 5 very interesting speakers with us. We have Maja Mutsson, Siri Hallberg Björklund, Jonas Kimmehed, Kinna Skoglund, and Leila El-Sherif Volheim with us. They will present their different perspectives and their experiences from their different fields. And we think that it's going to give a quite comprehensive view of this field. So we're very, very happy to have all of you here. And we're going to start with Maja Mutsson, sustainable business change leader and board professional. And she's going to be talking about diversity and inclusion as a business imperative. So with no further ado, Maja, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here with you. We're looking forward to hearing all the speakers today and having the discussions later on. I'm happy to be here because I'm very passionate about this topic. I've been dedicated to the field of diversity management for the last 15 years. Worked in different roles and different positions, from being a consultant to being a talent and diversity manager, being head of relations, but always with the same mission: to inspire and support business leaders to put diversity and inclusion on their agenda and to make it a top priority. So my intention for today, for this very precious 5 minutes here today, is to give you different perspectives of why diversity and inclusion is a business imperative and not only responsibility for the HR departments or the HR managers. So let's get started. Business powered by diversity. We all know that there is a business case for diversity, and there are a lot of studies that show that companies that implement diversity and inclusion in their business strategy outperform their competitors on profitability. Why is that? The answer is really very simple. It's not only about our people, it's also about our customers. No customers, no business, right? And it's also about how we communicate. Do we have an inclusive communication? It's also about innovation and resilience. And we all know, and the study shows, that diverse teams are more innovative and more resilient. And that's very important in every enterprise today. Thank you, Ida. Another perspective on why diversity and inclusion is a business imperative is that because they are embedded in the definition of sustainability. And actually, if you look at almost all companies today, when they are reporting about their diversity and inclusion numbers, statistics, actions, and initiatives and strategies and policies, they're almost always doing it in their sustainability report. Well, that's something quite new. We have seen this the last 4 to 6 years since we have this directive from the European Union that requires large companies to disclose their information about how what they are doing to increase diversity in their executive boards and in the executive levels, in the board of directors. And even if this requirement is only for large companies today, we all know that it's a matter of time until all companies, no matter of size and business, will be required to do the same. So when the vice president of the global talent at LinkedIn said diversity efforts fall short unless employees feel that they belong, she really changed the narrative for how we approach diversity and inclusion. And I used to use this metaphor in order to exemplify why diversity and inclusion and why the power of belonging is so strong in organization. If diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being invited to dance, then belonging is when you feel that the party is so much fun that you don't want to leave, right? There are a lot of other parties. They may have better drinks or better music, but this party is your party because you feel that you belong. And that's something most companies would love to hear from their employees, for sure. So when it comes to the board of directors, one of the most important tasks and responsibility a board of directors have is to decide for the company's strategies and policies. So that's why we want to have diversity and inclusion into the boardrooms, right? But we all know that what we are struggling with, especially here in Sweden, if you are not a white, Swedish-born male, 50 plus, your chances to be in a board of directors are very low, no matter what you have to bring to the table and no matter how competent you are. That's why I founded Great Impact, which had a mission to increase board diversity in Sweden. And now we can go to the takeaways. And there are 3 very important takeaways from these 5 minutes here today. 1, identify your why and make a statement and take action. Never underestimate the power of belonging, and make sure diversity and inclusion is a top management and a board of directors responsibility. Thank you. I managed to keep the 5 minutes, right?
Yes, very well done. Thank you so much, Maja. I love this, what you said about being invited to the party and being invited to dance. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Have we gotten any questions from the participants in the chat, Daniel?
We have one sakfråga, which is, would it be possible to access the recordings of the presentations afterwards?
Yes.
Yes, is that. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. I really encourage you to do so. But I have a personal question then. You said that inclusive perspectives increases in innovation and resilience within teams. Could you perhaps give an example?
Well, all the studies show that people who are thinking differently, they help each other to think more creatively, and that's how it is. It's hard to give a more concrete example. Everybody who have been in a diverse team know exactly how that is.
From your experience, what are the arguments business leaders use to, that's a good question, why they are not diverse on the board in their teams? Like, what's their excuse?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good question. Almost always their excuse should be, well, we don't have enough, there is no enough competence. There are not people that want to join our board that are good enough. Yeah, that's what I hear. And
what's your response?
What's my response? When you need to look forward, you need to always broaden up that canvas. What board of directors need to look a little bit more to broaden the perspective on where they are looking for competencies, for potential members for the board, right? So if you have the same, most boards of directors have committees, they nominate people for the board, right? And these people also been there for ages, for 10, 15 years, and they have their own networks. The networks are also quite closed, right? Because if you don't look outside your network and you don't improve your network, you will find the same people in your network. So my advice is to look outside your own garden. Yeah.
Lovely. Look outside your own garden. Thank you so much, Maja, for a very interesting sort of overview of the subject, I would say. We're going to move right into the next presentation by Siri Hallberg Björklund. She's the diversity and gender equality expert at the Swedish Construction Federation. Welcome, Siri. I'll give you about a minute to introduce yourself before we go into your timed presentation, and feel free to ask your questions to Siri in the chat while we go along. Welcome, Siri.
Thank you. And now I'm also unmuted. It helps answering questions. And as you said, Ida, my name is Siri Hallberg Björklund, and I work as an expert in diversity and gender equality at the Swedish Construction Federation, or as we call it in Swedish, Byggföretagen. And today I will talk very briefly, of course, on some of the examples on what the Swedish Construction Federation does when battles some of the challenges with the industry's lack of diversity, which in my point of view, at least, is one of the reasons we have an issue with the skill shortage. So I will link those two. So what are the Swedish Construction Federation? The Swedish Construction Federation are the trade association for private construction companies and employers. We represent approximately 3,700 construction companies all over Sweden, and these companies works with everything from railroads, house building, roads, offices. To summarize, our members pretty much works with everything you see around you in your everyday life. So from my point of view, it's a very important job that should be available for all the competence in all of the society. And you can move to the next slide if possible. So why work with diversity? From our point of view, to work with diversity in this type of industry is nothing you do to fill the quota, as something you should do just for the sake of it. For us, the work with diversity is a part in search of a solution for a much broader challenge our members have with skill shortage. And statistics from our own member survey shows that, for example, that 3 out of 5 member companies has had to decline deals in the past just because they don't have enough skilled workers. And every year the industry must find 10,000 new employees just to fill up the numbers for the people who retire. So to work with diversity is then to attract more people to the industry and give the companies the possibility to grow and to prosper. And for us, diversity is one of the solutions in a matter that for many companies are about survival. So how does the Swedish construction industry work with diversity? Some examples. I'm going to be very brief about what the Swedish construction industry does by referring to some examples of how we work with attracting more people to our member companies. And one of the keys in solving the lack of skilled workers and lack of diversity is working together with related organizations and, none the least, the related unions. The work that needs to be done is much easier when working together. We also collaborate with concerned authorities, such as Arbetskraftsförmedlingen and Diskrimineringsombudsmannen, and of course, the work already done by some of our member companies. To summarize, this is nothing we as an organization can or want to do by our own. Instead, let's work together. Attraction and representation. One example of how we work is through attraction and representation. In this picture, you see a boy who lives in Järvaområdet playing with a VR machine that we had in our monter at Järvaveckan 2019. Järvaveckan is a political week mainly for the people who lives in and around Järva, a socially disadvantaged area in Stockholm. And for me, a perfect platform to find new talents, both young and old. And representation is, for us, one key tool in making the construction industry more attractive for different type of people with different type of skill sets. One way in doing so is to challenge various stereotypes that our society can have about the construction industry by constantly working with what we would like to call good examples. By showing the companies that leads the way in recruiting on a diverse spectrum, we hope to make people feel more welcome and for other companies to follow. And in this picture, you see me together with one of Galaxenbygg's match coordinators, David. And Galaxenbygg is one other example of how we work with helping our member companies in recruiting and maintaining a more diverse staff. David, together with 20 other people around the country, are working as the link between people who have the right to government subvention employments, such as newcomers, and our member companies in need of recruiting. But they don't stop at just being the link, they also do follow-ups, both with the hired individual and the company, to ensure that the match works as smoothly as possible. And this is to ensure that the workspace is inclusive and to avoid so-called clashes of cultures from both ends. And these were just some examples of what we do in creating a more diverse workspace and making an entire construction industry prosper through diversity. Thank you for your time.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Siri.
Thank you. I'm a little bit sweaty now.
Well done, I must say. I have a question for you. Do you think there is a difference, and in what way, of working with diversity issues in the construction industry compared to other industries?
Well, yeah, I think there is a difference, just because of you have to look at each industry you're working with and see what type of diversity you lack. And in the construction industry, we pretty much lack all of the diversity, so to speak. But there are also many stereotypes that I mentioned that we also battle with. Especially on the academic side, because it was mentioned in the speak before that what are the excuses? And the excuses is that you don't have any competence, and that's also a false narrative in the construction industry. I would say that there are a lot of competence out there that aren't mainly white males. You just have to find it and to lift it and to open the doors for those people and those competence. And also I mentioned that I work with newcomers, and that's also a way to broaden how we work with the industry, to open the doors for the competence that come from abroad to our country.
Thank you. Daniel, do we have any questions from the participants?
We have a question from Kinna, actually. There are thousands of unaccompanied minor students that has graduated in construction work that could take the lärlinganställningar. Is that of interest to you?
Yeah, short answer, but of course I can't guarantee anything here today in this speak. But as I mentioned, we have Galaxenbygg, for example, that works as a link between the construction industry, our member companies, and people who are interested in working in the construction industry. And that includes everyone from the people who already have some sort of education or a background in the construction industry, and people who doesn't have any background but have like the passion and wants to work in the construction industry. So short answer, yes.
You mentioned the clash of cultures, if you will. How is it to work with the unions in a way? Like, these are old, traditional, male-dominated.
Well, that's another type of clash of cultures. I was mainly thinking about the employees and the employer, because, and as I said, I work some with newcomers, and the construction industry abroad is very different from the construction industry in Sweden in many ways. For example, we talk about the right to go to fika is one of like the most basic things, but it's okay to have a fika with your colleagues. You aren't seen as lazy for doing so. It's okay to call the boss by his or her first name and stuff like that. So they work with very, like, I would say, hands-on clashes of cultures on Galaxen's point of view. But also, I would say clashes of cultures regarding the union. I haven't experienced them because on this matter, we all agree, I would say, that we need more diversity in the industry. And that's regarding ethnicity, gender equality. I mean, on this type of issues, we actually agree with each other. So no clashes of cultures there.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the next speaker, Jonas Kimmehed, and I'm going to share his presentation with you. But welcome, Jonas. Jonas is the Chief Executive Officer of SQL Systems, so he's going to share his experience in the team that they have at SQL Systems.
So, hi everyone, thanks for having me, and thank you Openlab for having me. So this is a very important topic for us. So, why do we exist? There's a picture. Because we believe that if you enable data, you can create value for people and businesses. Data is the shit. We create value for our customers by harmonizing data to one single source of truth. Imagine the size of data that businesses have today compared to 5, 10, or 20 years ago. This data is usually scattered across an organization. This data could be of equipment data, component data, spare part data, documentation, and so on. Based on how fast the technology has moved forward, it's hard to keep up with the data. And the same direction, scattered, is the same way an organization usually ends up. By collecting, cleaning, harmonizing this data back to one single source of truth, we are also bringing departments and organizations together. They all base their work and decisions on the same data. No matter if you are in a different part of the organization or in a different parts of the world, we create a unified language that everyone can understand. So why do we exist? It starts with you believing that your team or system have valuable data that you want to make available. Our mission of extracting data from physical assets is also correlated with our belief that people have inner potential and capacity. And it's our job to create a reliable and collaborative environment for people to blossom in. Your inner potential is your inner human data. So which data is important for us when we search for new team members? I'm a value-driven person, and therefore it has influenced how I recruit my team members. I have never thought of this as a diversity or any other term, besides my core belief that if you focus on understanding people on a deeper level with an EQ perspective, you will also be able to have a more diverse and inclusive workplace. I'm not traditionally skilled or formally educated, but what I do have is work-life experience, which has taught me that some values are very important to surround yourself with. On the picture now, you can see my little girl, Mila, and she is the perfect model for the following qualities I usually have. Honesty. Mila always expresses her feelings no matter what. She can't hide it. She's a dog. I think if I surround myself with people that are keen on being honest, that will help me to continue to grow and develop both individual and business-wise. I want to have people around me that challenges my beliefs and that can teach me and expose me to new ideas. Prestigeless. Mila has nothing to prove. She just wants to be loved. I believe that if you are prestigeless, it also means that you are prepared to learn, but also to help people around you, no matter your title or function. You have an understanding of the importance of being in a team. Success and development is created by all of us working together. Curious. Mila is always present and looking for new adventures. Curious people tend to test new things. They like evolving. They're not afraid of development. Unique and different. There is only one Mila. If you can bring something unique or different to the table, we believe it's in the best interest of our people and business. Uniqueness is valuable if you like to energize your growth and mind. It's important for us to show our team that our beliefs are embedded in our actions and policies. To do so, we allow our team members the following. Christmas doesn't have a fixed date. All of our team chooses their own holidays. We're family and pet friendly. We have a meditation and prayer room for stillness and reflection. We want to meet the human need for growth. So to summarize, I would like to say that some of us have traditional backgrounds, formally schooled. Others have long work-life experience. They have learned their skill sets by doing it. We have a variation in skill sets, all from different backgrounds, engineers, IT, data scientists, business, and HR. We embrace the EQ of our people, and we have a multicultural team. And most important of all, we try to see the humanity in the humans. Thanks for your time.
Lovely. Thank you, Jonas. I think it's very interesting, this take on what diversity is, because we didn't predefine what we mean by diversity before this event. So diversity in all different ways is very interesting. Daniel, over to you and questions, if there are any.
Matteo asks, you embrace EQ. Do you also work to improve EQ? I guess then among your employees, and if so, how?
So it's two different lanes, of course, EQ and IQ, which we call soft skills and hard skills. So we have internal development for both soft skills and hard skills, depending on which one you want to improve. So it's up to each and everyone. If they want to improve a hard skill, they will do. If they want to improve a soft skill, that's the way they will go.
Do you track this as well? Data is the shit.
Yes, of course.
How?
It's done in many different ways. Alongside how people are going to develop their skills, it's more of the more data you can collect to see how the progress is going and do a follow-up to see if you are on the right track or not. That will end up in different results, of course. But you need to keep track of what you're doing, otherwise you don't know where you're going.
All right, if there are no more questions, we thank Jonas and we move on to the next speaker. Kinna Skoglund has initiated a bunch of different initiatives for diversity and inclusion, and she's here to talk especially on the campaign Redo for Arbetskraftsförmedlingen. Welcome, Kinna.
Thank you so much. I think I will turn my camera off so you can concentrate on the pictures and what I say, not on me.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think I will start right away. You did a good presentation.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. The purpose of this organization that is called Arbetskraftsförmedlingen is to help employers and young workers to find each other. And we chose the name. It's almost similar to Arbetsförmedlingen because we wanted to challenge Arbetsförmedlingen a little bit. We think it's needed now. So that's why we chose the same name, almost. And I want to share the association's values with you. Arbetskraftsförmedlingen is a political and religious, independent and non-profit association. We work for diversity, equality, equal treatment for all, and distance ourselves from violence, hatred, threats, and all kinds of discrimination. We want to cooperate with others whose values are also consists of democratic values and who, like us, work for everyone's equal value, rights, and opportunities. And right now, the association is running a campaign called Redo. And you can see some of the young members here on this picture. And the goal is to match the needs of companies and employers with educated young people in the shortage. What these young people has in common is that everyone has been in Sweden for about 5 years and has a temporary residence permit through the law called Nya Gymnasielagen. The requirements for those who have temporary residence with this law is that they need a permanent employment 6 months after they graduate. And there can be no help from Arbetsförmedlingen, economical support to the company, and they can not have start time as many of others. They try a job, they need a permanent employment right away. And if they don't get it, they get deported. The Redo campaign works to establish collaboration with the business community, public sector, and others employers. Our strength is that we have a large network within civil society, association, organizations, and other actors who work with the target group. We use LinkedIn as our CV database, and we guide all the employers and all the young people that we have contact with into LinkedIn and matching. And you can search on Arbetskraftsförmedlingen on LinkedIn. The Redo campaign helps employers who are looking for skills to find motivated and educated workforce. These are young and driven and want nothing else than to work, and they want to contribute to the society. They are more than ready, and it's quite simply, it's a win-win. That's how we usually put it. We are convinced that our country are ready to take advantage of these good forces now. We started this organization for about 7 months ago, and we have about 600 members. 100 of them are national-wide organizations. Thousands of young people are now literally on the doorstep of working life and are ready to take the step. To support and make that step easier, everyone can make a difference. Are you a non-profit superpower that's chosen to spend a few hours a week coaching a young person in search of his or her first job? Or are you the one offering the permanent job? It can determine their whole future and save them from deportation. This was the campaign Redo, and the organization is called Arbetskraftsförmedlingen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kinna. Very interesting. No questions yet, what I can see. I'm curious to know, so you initiated this. What made you do that?
Actually, I've been involved in this group of young people for 5 years in another movement that is called Vi står inte ut. And around Christmas this year, 25th of December, some people from different companies called me and asked me if I wanted to be the chairman of a new organization that they wanted to start. So I said yes.
So 2 questions from in the chat. There's more of a statement, the first one, that Christine agrees that Arbetsförmedlingen should focus on young people, but is there anything going on to prevent age discrimination? Oh, there was a lack of a question mark. So age discrimination was one part. So I think the underlying question is Arbetskraftsförmedlingen only for young people? And the other question is, if you have a database of the employers who are generally willing to go through the effort of hiring people who is in need of a visa.
Oh, there was many. You have to say it again, Daniel, one at a time.
Okay, first question. Is it only for young people?
Yes, it's only for young people, but it's not only for newcomers. It's everyone that is under 25.
And do you have a database of employers who are willing to go through the effort of hiring people who need a visa?
Yes, we have started. We have about 30 or 35, maybe.
Is that accessible?
Yes, it's on our website.
So here you just need to contact Kinna and you will get an excellent list.
Yes.
So there's another question, but I think it's a good question to save for the panel discussion as well.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to point in, because I know Kinna, this is not her first rodeo in figuring out how to get people that are very far away from the labor market into the labor market. You have like 20 years, maybe 15?
30 maybe.
30?
Yeah, but I think this is the best one actually. I'm most proud of this one because I think this is something that can bring us all together in a way that could make a big difference for our country.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Okay, it's time for the last of our 5 speakers, is Ayla Sharif Volheim. Leila is a sustainability consultant. She's been involved with Working for Change Foundation, so that is what she will focus on today. But the floor is yours, Leila.
Okay, yeah, great, thanks. So hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here and so impressed by all these inspirational initiatives. My name is Leila and I'm a journalist and communications consultant specialized in the challenge of sustainable business. At the moment, I work for the government and the appointed National Coordinator for Agenda 2030. I'm also CEO for the non-profit foundation Smarta Samtal, which is a platform for societal discussions about global challenges. And today I'm going to share the work I've done together with the project Working for Change Matters. So if we could please start the presentation. So Working for Change is a non-profit foundation started 2015 with a mission to drive diversity and inclusion in the Swedish workforce. Our belief is that the road to inclusive labor market begins in each individual recruitment. The last 3 years, we've been working with a program called Working for Change Matters. It's been financially supported by the Swedish Agency for Youth and Civil Society, Myndigheten för ungdoms- och civilsamhällsfrågor in Swedish, and working in collaboration with the Research Institute Kantar SIFO. The focus has primarily been on the target group of foreign-born academics from the Middle East and Africa. Research shows that these minority groups have had particular difficulties finding jobs matching their education. Also, they're more likely to be exposed to discrimination. So why is it harder for foreign-born academics to get a job? 45% say they lack the right network. In comparison, domestic-born academics state lack of work experience as their main reason. And when Svenskt Näringsliv did a survey with their members, they confirmed that most recruitments, 66% today, are made through existing networks and contacts. Half also use Arbetskraftsförmedlingen and 40% so advertise and use social media. Through focus groups and in-depth interviews with foreign-born academics, Working for Change have gained valuable insights of the challenges this group meet on the Swedish labor market. Our goal is to help HR managers and decision makers to understand the value of cultural diversity in the workplace. And by cultural diversity, we mean people who are perceived to have a different ethnic origin than the majority group in Sweden through, for example, skin color, religion, habits, customs, attitude, values, or ways of communicating due to background. Based on these job seekers, we developed the competence method. This is a digital analysis tool used as structured support for competency-based recruitments. In 6 steps, the competence method helps employers review their recruitment process, with a special focus on requirements and routines that risk to systematically exclude different groups. The results provide data for self-reflection and internal discussions on how to create a more structured hiring process. Step 1 and 4, examine the overall business strategy and communication with candidates. Step 5 and 6, evaluate how employers ensure that all employees are included in the workplace. So, hiring through traditional channels means that most employers will miss out on more than half the recruitment base, as you can see. Candidates reached through traditional recruitments is far less. First step to broadening your candidate base is to evaluate your recruitment profile based on a needs analysis. Put words to unspoken demands and question each other's requirements. Involve more people in the process, preferably people with different backgrounds. Also, review your communication. How is your organization portrayed in text and image? Who is represented and who is not? Why? It's important to have a self-critical approach and an awareness that your own bias and expectations will affect the outcome of your hiring process. So, what's in it for you, you might ask? I'll give you 3 good reasons. 1, the competition globally for the best talents is constantly increasing. We also have our demographic development where fewer has to support our aging population. So in order to manage the supply skills in the future, we have to make use of all competence available in the workforce. 2, a second multiple of studies shows that diversity drives innovation and creates more business. Diversified working groups provide broader perspectives, increased understanding of different customer needs. Another benefit is employer branding. Employers that promote diversity and inclusion in the workplace are considered to be more attractive to talents in the top universities. For example, Google, IKEA, Spotify, Volvo Cars are ranked as Sweden's most attractive employers. And last but not least, it's the law. The Swedish Discrimination Act states that employers must counter discrimination and promote equal rights and opportunities in the workforce. And since I'm working to position Sweden as the front runner in making the SDGs happen, we all need to take action to reduce inequalities. Well, there you have it. Thank you for listening.
We sure do. Thank you so much, Leila, for this presentation and for this very hands-on method to help people to get started and get working with this. Daniel, any questions?
No, not yet. I think people need a small moment to reflect on the statements. So much to take in from Matteo. Yes, it is so much to take in. How are the reactions of, because if you I assume that if you go to a traditional company and you say that 66% of the recruitments are done through people they know generally. And I take it that this process that you present is a bit more resource intensive, I can imagine.
Well, it's you get it's a more structured hiring process where there's not so many objectives for being subjective in who you should take. It's more from the when trying to pin down your requirements, understanding what's needed for the role and not what's needed to fit into the group. So you really have to work a lot with these needs analyses to have the whole structure for the process.
Is it a long process? Is it hard to get the companies to offset the time? Because I assume that that's new types of activities that they are not currently doing.
Well, really, that depends on how far they've reached in their own work. I mean, this is the method really puts a mirror onto the organization on how they're working and how they are, because most of them really do have great values and intentions, but are they reflected in the process of requirement? We have focused on the recruitment process because we think that's the part in the organization where we can do the most impact in changing or making sure that it's not a bias that is driving the hiring or the choosing of candidates. And you get it's more of getting an internal discussion going to see how are we doing, can we measure how well we're doing.
Yeah. So here, do we have time for another question, Ida?
Yes, go ahead.
So here asks, what is done to actively promote and or sell the competency method of hiring companies? So I guess how successful is it to push this out? Is it easy? Is it hard?
Well, yeah, it is, because the thing is that we were funded by Myndigheten för ungdoms- och civilsamhällsfrågor And we got to the stage where we actually have the method. Next step is to develop an education where we can actually take in all the HR competencies, giving them the right tools to work further with the more specified in recruiting cultural diversity. And we're not there yet. We have a lot of different dialogues ongoing, but we're not there. So yes, it is difficult.
Is it a difference between big companies and small companies?
How do you mean? Difference between?
How receptive they are of the process. Is it easier for a big HR department? Sarah has a long question, but I think it generally is it easier for a company that has an HR department in contrast to a smaller company that might just be 5 people, or is it vice versa?
Well, depending on the company and how far it's reached by themselves. The HR, I mean, if you have a big HR department, of course you have a standard and you have policy documents and already in place. The question is, are they aware of their own bias, and are they actually practicing what they are aiming at? And that's not always the case. And if it's a smaller company, and like Jonas gave an example for, there can be an awareness that it's that is shown in everyday work in a different manner. So it really depends a lot.
Thank you so much, all of the speakers. And right now we see the drawings that Nikki has captured from the talks. And I'd like to ask Nikki to give us a short summary. What have you heard and what do we see in front of us?
Yes, so it's been very interesting to listening, which I guess all of the other people who are also here today thinks, and a very broad spectrum of how to think about diversity. And I think it's really nice that we've gone all the way from talking about the problem in different sectors, with the building sector, where they think that they have to say no to some commissions because they haven't found a competence in people, but they are there. They just need help to get to these different jobs. And then we have some stories like Leila's, where they talk about how companies can get to those employees who just don't have the network to connect to the companies that need them, as well as Redo is doing, that Kinna mentioned, where the young new Swedes that are risking to leave our country, even though they have all the competencies we need, can find their employees by going into the database. And I thought it was also very clear, if we looked about some common highlights, what they've been talking about, that the collaboration is very, very important. And that's the problem, the networking. So getting out there and trying to find common grounds is the main way to go to be more diverse. And it was also really nice to hear Jonas, when he is a company who feel that they have succeeded with the diverse workplace by going for values instead of, maybe, of course, the competencies has to be there, but the values have led them instead of maybe the pre thoughts of what an employee should be. So I think there's so much to reflect upon, and I guess that's what you will have a small time to do now. Look at the picture and think about how this is connected to your organization.
Exactly. We're gonna give you 5 minutes we're gonna leave this image here for 5 minutes, and we invite you to just take a short break, stretch your legs and refill your coffee or whatever you need to do. And also to let these talks sink in and think about what would you like to ask all of the speakers, the panel, after we come back. So, my friends, it's time to come back. So we heard a very good summary from Nikki and we have these drawings in front of us. So based on what you heard and maybe the work that you have ahead of you when it comes to diversity and inclusion, what questions do you have to the panel? We're gonna allow them to have a bit of a discussion, probably not a debate, but a discussion about this topic. So write those questions in the chat. But maybe I can just open up with a question like to all of the speakers. What are your takeaways concerning where you agree, and is there somewhere where you have some different takes on this subject? Leila, what would you say?
I don't see that we have any different takes, really. Rather, the way we approach the issue, or the way to work with inclusion, from a leadership perspective with Maja, to a more internal affair for Jonas, and also for us, being trying to influence decision makers in HR. So it's a good spread, but in some ways you wish that we could work together to give a broader understanding to companies and organizations that haven't yet seen the light, if I address it that way. So if you have any suggestions, on how we can collaborate, I'm all ears.
I think you and Kinna should have a coffee, obviously.
That was my question. I think it's very interesting to hear more from you, Leila.
Yeah, because of course we need to work with both the groups that are not entering the work market, as well as the gatekeepers that are not helping them to enter, or to make them understand the value of recruiting more variety of people.
I think we had a great question before, and I think I'll start with Kinna, then perhaps you all can take a round. And Kinna, could you give us some success stories?
Yes, we have one. I can give you one that is really remarkable. Actually, we had a person who works with VVS, and he lived in Stockholm, and he had 3 weeks left before deportation. And we put out an ad in Facebook, and there was a person who knew a small business in Åre. And we called this man, and the first thing he asked me was, does he pray every day? How is his view on women? And, all these prejudiced questions. And I think it was wonderful that he asked them. Then we had a great talk, and later, it was 2 weeks. He was up there 2 weeks, and then he got an permanent employment, and he is like a part of their family now. And this man who has this company says that he was really negative to the people who migrated to our country, and now he has all different take on this question, thanks to Ruhula, who now works there and is a part of his family, and everybody's already know him. I think it's 5 different magazines and media has done big reports on this success. So I think that's a wonderful story to tell.
I also have multiple success stories. It's so hard to just pick one, but to be very brief, I know that Galaxen had this one person. He was a newcomer, and he was analphabetic when he arrived in Sweden, and today he works in construction thanks to Galaxen. So I mean, sometimes it isn't just about the competence that you have when entering the country, but it's also the competence that you can acquire, the passion that you have. And I think every person that gets I think we all sit on these type of success stories because these the people who have to like enter the the needle's eye, so to speak, have to be a success story, unfortunately.
So
Otherwise
how
they
was
wouldn't
this,
get a job.
so how was this? How did the process look then for this analphabetic person and Galaxen?
Yeah, I mentioned in my speak that we work very closely with the Arbetsförmedlingen and especially the etableringsuppdraget that works with newcomers. And he was, I think he was through there. I didn't work on the specific case, so I only heard it from the colleagues. But he came from Arbetsförmedlingen, and yeah, he went through that process, and then he got connected with Galaxen and got a job through them. Yeah.
So there's a question, if someone can, Leila might be able to answer this more, because it's more of a structural question. Sweden has one of the most discriminating work environments in the Western world. Still, many of us Swedes call ourselves open-minded, anti-racist, etc. Any suggestion to how we mind this gap, how to get more people aware of the problem and start to act upon it?
Well, then I have to recommend you to do use the competence method. Of course. Now it's about mirroring I don't really agree to say that we're the most discriminating work environments. I think there is, we're not aware that our structure or our routines are actually excluding groups. If we are applying for a position and we ask, which is quite common, that you have a specific education, maybe that is only given at certain universities in Sweden, you exclude everyone else that is educated outside of Sweden. So I don't think it's something that people are aware of, but you need to start to understand that, to be able to just look at the map, mirroring, to see who is actually working in our organization and who is not. And why is that? Is it mirroring the rest of society? It's probably not. Then we need to ask these questions. Are we reaching the whole of the recruitment base today when we are seeking competence, or are we missing out? So this is about building an awareness and maybe putting some pressure on the employers to have a more structured hiring form. We'll talk about making anonymous CVs, having more testing for competence, so you don't get into these interviews where you actually still put these quite discriminating questions to the interview.
If I can rephrase the question then, because my interpretation is that you're saying that there are tools available, and her underlying question then, how to get more people aware of the problem, can then be, how do we get more people to use the tools?
Good question. We're having discussions with Arbetsförmedlingen, for instance. We really think that this should be a kind of education that all HR and recruitment leaders that in some way affect the hiring process become aware of. One problem I see is that you're kind of looking into all the disabling diskrimineringsgrunderna, så liksom att you look at all the discrimination grounds, and culture diversity is lost in that process because you're so you can measure and you can count how many women and men in the workforce, and you can also address some of the questions, but it's kind of difficult to start to measure, and it can be uneasy to measure how are we really representing the society in large in our group, and why is that, and start to ask these questions. It's not always positive or happy feeling doing that. I'm thinking, Siri, you must have that working with the construction companies when they start to mirror themselves and say, okay, we're not really being good at attracting women or young people or people of different ethnic groups? What did they say?
Well, the answer depends very much depending on the company you ask that question to. I would say, first of all, because our companies vary so much in size and in economic means. So we represent companies that have like 10,000 employers and 3. So it differs a lot depending on if it's a small company or a large company. But I would say that they want to work with it, and they want to include more. Some companies have gone further in that work that needs to be done. But I think the overall view in the construction industry is that it has to be done, and the reason for it from our point of view is because it's mainly economical, because we have a skill shortage, and so for the companies it's a matter of survival. So I think that makes them do the hard work that needs to be done. Then of course there are a lot to be done, and yeah, the companies have different means in doing so, and that's where we come in and help them lead the way.
So you agree that there is a will, and I mean they have an ambition to really attract all kinds instead of just having. But when you do mirror the workforce, it gets a bit embarrassing because they're not representing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to cut in. There's a great question, and it kind of leads into this question. I want to ask Maja this question from Matteo. How does the panel view, but I think this is really interesting because Maja works primarily with the boards. How does Maja view tokenism, like having individuals or visible minorities present in boards, company pictures, and even token board seats, like it's just for show?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. Well, I could give you an example with a company I work with. It's a huge concern called Axel Johnson concern. It has about 67,000 employees. It has companies like Hemköp, Willys, Philippa, Åhléns in the concern. They had a lot of representation in their workforce. It was, and what they realized, and looking very close to it, was that their top management teams and their boards were predominantly only Swedish-born people and white Swedish-born males. So they lifted the question into the board and said, okay, we give ourselves 5 years from now. I think it was 2013. We give ourselves 5 years from now. In 5 years, we want to have 40% women in our board and leadership teams, and we want to have at least 20% foreign-born people in our board and in our top management team. They wanted to put numbers on it because we all know what's measured gets done, right? So they wanted to put numbers on it because they had a lot of foreign-born people working in these companies, a lot of them, in some areas even overrepresented, right? But that was not at all the same in the boards and in the management teams. And that's a very good example of how a big company approach the issue of increasing diversity and inclusion by measuring it. And I can only agree. I think it's what gets measured gets done. That's it.
So on the topic of measuring, then I got a great question then, because that also leads into something which is into Jonas. From a company perspective, how did you start putting a process and a structure in achieving your this value-based recruitment in your company?
So it's a good question. Do I have a structure for it? No, I don't. So everything comes from me, because that's how I would like to have it. So it has been zippering down to, especially now, since we have hired a HR person who is exactly the same as me. So when it comes to people, I would say having a good structure and how you will get the people that you're looking for will somehow make it harder. It's about a people skill, if you ask me. So I trust myself very much. I trust my team very much. So if there is anything I would like to ask regarding a person, I ask my team. But the simple question is that there is not a structure behind. It's a people thing.
Can I also second that? I agree with Jonas. It's a people thing, but what he's also saying is a leadership question. Because if you are in a leading position, you say, yes, this is important. We need to have fair and just recruitment structures, or I mean, ways of not discriminating. If you have this awareness, and if you're a small company, maybe you don't need the structures, but if you are a bigger company, you have to have it in place. Otherwise, there will be a bias on and expectations in control. So it's a leadership question rather.
So for big companies to get that structure, it's about having the right C-level people.
Yeah.
Could you explore a bit on your term C-level people?
So the top management, for example, if the persons that are in the top management are people management, then this is something that will come by itself.
Ah, okay. So now I'm getting reminded that we need to step into the next session, which is the breakout rooms.
Yes, so this is so interesting. I'd like to talk more about it, but we also actually want to give the opportunity for you participants to reflect upon this together and also maybe make some connections among you. So we're going to move into the mingle part. If I can have the screen share, please. So we have prepared for you to move into breakout rooms, and there we would like for you to reflect on, from your context, from your company, from your position, from what you heard, what will you start with, or what can you do in your context to increase the diversity and inclusion? And the speakers will also randomly be put into these rooms, and we will have less than 10 minutes to do so because we had so interesting discussions, but we still hope that you can just get started in talking a little bit and exchange contact details in case you want to continue talking. So Carla will divide you into breakout rooms right now. Welcome back. You're all flooding in. I wonder if this is all of us. I think so. This was a bit intense, right? Quick. We tried to keep this format pretty rapid to just have a taste, to have this inspiring spark, and hopefully you have some thoughts and ideas that you can actually bring to your organizations. We've heard that diversity and inclusion, of course, it's important for individuals to have equal rights and equal opportunities. It's also good for your business. It will make you more profitable. It will make you stand out better than your competitors. And there are ways to do it. Either you can start your own initiative and just help people, match people, use data to understand how to find these people that you want in your organization. Look at the personalities rather than the superficial things. Look into the competence method and just continue exploring this. And a big thank you to all of you. We're going to do this silent applause to everyone. So happy that you were here listening. We have recorded this and we will share it as well, so you can send it to anyone who needs it. Thank you so much.